This holiday season, buyers and sellers have big wish lists. In this episode, I'll tell you what they each want to see under their tree.
As we close out 2023 and head into 2024, we thought maybe it would be a fun idea to talk about what buyers and sellers each want for Christmas this year.
Yes, I think it's a good thing to end on.
What do you think that buyers most want to see under their tree this year, Tony?
I think anyone moving to the Sunshine Coast has, a dream or a desire in some way to get a really nice view. I think most people that move here and look at the topography of the area and go down like Abbs Road or in Seashell, some of those view streets there, they look out and they think, wouldn't it be lovely to have a wicked view? And views in Gibsons and the Sunshine Coast are a lot more affordable than they are in places like North Van and West Van, where most of our potential buyers are coming from. So I think probably top of the list would be, having a nice view in whatever house they descend or apartment or condo or townhouse that they end up buying.
I was thinking that buyers would probably really like a single level floor plan, especially as they're retirees. A lot of them coming to the coast, that it's nice to have everything on one level. And even if you can't, maybe that's hard to find a single level home, but even if it's multiple stories, but everything that person needs is on one level, the kitchen and the bedroom and the bathroom and that kind of thing. And the rest of it's just guest space then.
Yeah. So one level living. And you're right. Our primary buyer group here, we say it all the time, are retirees. And so, their knees tend to be, questionable and looking for new hips here and there. But, those guys are typically either looking for a rancher with a view, which Bonnybrook Heights up in that area, there's a lot of them. They were kind of spec homes built specifically for that buyer group, so they're always in demand. Or like you say, a split level or a two-story, but all of, the master on the main or the primary bedroom on the main, and then with guest rooms and stuff upstairs that they don't, they're not constantly going up and down stairs. So that depending on the age group that's buying, that would be the top of their wish list as well. The other thing we find, like with the younger demographic that's coming over here, what we saw a real spike in during COVID, are people coming from the city, from apartments and townhomes, and the top of their list typically is a yard, specifically a fenced yard. So, if they've got dogs or kids, they're contained and, they can have the picket fence and the barbecue and have people over, which is something that, living on the coast, we sort of take for granted. Mm-hmm. But when you're coming from a city or a more dense urban area, it is a very desirable thing to be able to have some outdoor living space. So I think that's got to be on the list as well.
Because of the average home price on the Sunshine Coast, I think a lot of buyers are looking for secondary suites that they can use maybe to supplement their income and offset some of their mortgage cost. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something like 94% of the suites on the Sunshine Coast are not legal. So depending on who your financing is coming from, who's underwriting it, that kind of thing, they may they'll definitely use the income from a legal suite towards your mortgage, so you might qualify for more. And sometimes they'll do it on a unauthorised suite or not a legal suite. But if it's a legal secondary suite, you're kind of guaranteed to either have that mortgage helper or to be able to use the money that comes in from that suite, towards your mortgage. And so therefore you could qualify for more buying a house with a legal suite than one without it. Also with, the things coming down the pike with the provincial ban on short-term rentals, that applies to Seashell because they've got the population. But in Gibsons, the local municipality is not compelled to enforce those rules. Given it's Gibsons, and they were talking about it before the provincial legislation was said to be coming out, they probably are going to enforce some of the limitations that come from that blanket kind of ban. But if you can buy a house with a legal secondary suite, it might be easier for you to get a license for that and to maintain generating that Airbnb revenue if you didn't want to rent it out long term. But all the way around, there's definitely value in a suite, in a house being legal as opposed to unlegal. So that would probably be right up there on the buyer wish list as well.
If buyers are looking for legal secondary suites to offset their mortgage payment, probably something that they're shopping for is value in general, I would think.
Yeah, 100%. That was going to be, I was going to be my big reveal for the fifth thing, but you've beat me to it. Thanks again, Paul. So after, kind of living through a once in a lifetime kind of seller's market, touch wood that there's, no future pandemics that drive a bunch of people over here. But living through that and seeing the spike and everything we did, it was tough, very tough for buyers, right? The table was being set for multiple offers. Basically you could list a place 20% over value and just wait for the market to catch up. and now kind of the shoe's on the other foot, and you've got a lot of buyers out there, that have been maybe not able to get into the market or found themselves caught in that, that spiking price, now want to get in. So they're being a lot more selective. Offers obviously are being written with subjects, and it's a buyer's market now. So I think really it's value. So, I'd always recommend to people selling with me to err on the side of caution and to list the home for the current market conditions. It's not what it was 6 months ago or even 3 months ago. I mean, you need to show value to a buyer to get them to solicit an offer. And, if you don't do that, your home's going to sit on the market for a long time and you'll end up chasing the market down. So better to kind of bite the bullet now as a seller to attract the buyer and get the price that your home's worth now, than hope and try to get more and end up selling it for less, because in 3 months it probably is going to the market will continue to soften. So probably the fifth one and one of the biggest ones is a buyer wants to see value. So you totally hit the nail on the head there, Paul.
That's what buyers are looking for this holiday season. What do you think is on sellers' wish list?
Well, number one on the seller's wish list would probably be an uneducated buyer that has no idea about the market and really deep pockets, so they'll just pay whatever. But I don't think they really exist anymore, regardless of what, maybe the property guys people would have you think. But ultimately, I think people just want a top dollar for their home, right? And they have to be realistic about what that top dollar is now. So, I mean, when you're listing the place, you want to base your list price on recent solds. You definitely do not want to be looking at, comparable listings that are listed, because, if they're sitting on the market for a long time, then, those sellers are kind of chasing yesterday's prices, and you need to set yourself up to sell now. So, getting top dollar in the sense of, what maybe a year ago your house was worth, you're probably not going to get that, but you can still negotiate on favourable dates and that kind of thing, things that work for you. Maybe, if you're selling and buying. We've had some success in the past in markets similar to this, where, the seller hasn't necessarily got as much money as they wanted for their house, but they did get a long close. And so what happened is they sold, the market softened, they bought 2.5 months later and got a much better deal. So maybe the 20, 30 grand that they didn't get on the upfront price, they made up when they bought. So you've got, strategies like that. But probably, the seller's wish list, I'd say, is top dollar for the home and making sure that the person making an offer on it isn't a subject to sale. It's, someone that actually has money to buy their house is writing an offer, right, as opposed to someone that hopes to one day have the money to be able to buy their house. So, yeah.
A close second would have to be a smooth sales process. Like selling a house is a very stressful thing. So I would think most of your sellers are looking for something that just goes very smoothly from start to finish.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we talked about, I think, last podcast or the podcast before. Is just you're making sure that the realtor or the agent that you're dealing with has a good team around them, and that's not just buyers agents and property managers and good administrative people and that kind of thing. It's like mortgage brokers that they work with, communicating with the mortgage broker, make sure everything's going properly there. Inspectors that that they can recommend that do a good job and give kind of a good report to you. Lawyers are also a very important part of the process. So anyone like doing conveyance, whether it be a notary or a lawyer, that's basically who I pass the ball to. Once I've done my thing, I pass it off to the lawyer or the conveyance person. And, there are obviously different quality of service that comes from them. I have a specific lawyer that I primarily use and refer stuff to. And the reason I do that is because I know that she's very good at her job and she always makes sure that everything goes smoothly. Also because I refer such a large volume of business to her, that my clients get a little bit of a break on the price as opposed to someone coming in off the street. So I think that's really the biggest part of the sales process, is working with a realtor or a realtor team that that knows what they're doing, has good administration, has gone through the process a lot of times, so they know kind of any hiccups that might come and kind of get ahead of them, and then pass off to a really good conveyance person or notary that can take them the rest of the way. So yeah, ultimately I think to summarize all that and use a team and everything else is sellers basically just want the transaction to go with as few hiccups kind of thing as possible. And then that kind of leads into probably what the next thing on the seller's wish list would be. Not that sellers are lazy, but ideally, they decide to sell a house, someone comes in, buys it, and then they can move on. Sometimes we recommend doing a bit of work, maybe to increase curb appeal and that kind of thing. But I mean, you've, in the last few years, you've sold quite a few places yourself, right? So, I mean, what did you find? Was that a desirable thing for you?
Well, one thing, this was in another market, but something that worked really well for us as buyers that I think would be attractive to sellers is that we did buy a property from a woman that was retiring and downsizing, but it was a full-size family home and it was full of furniture and like a life full of stuff. And she was very concerned about how she was going to deal with it. And it ended up being a multiple offer situation. And we put it into our offer. That was, we would just, whatever she wanted to take, she could take, and whatever she wanted to leave, she could leave. Mm-hmm. So if it was furniture, it was boxes, we said we would just deal with that in the end. And we ended up buying the property, and we found out that we weren't the highest price, but that she was so stressed about having to deal with all this stuff that our offer was really compelling. And so I think that, if sellers are looking for a smooth deal, there are things that buyers can offer other than price to make that deal smoother.
Yeah. And being able to leave, 20 years worth of accumulated items in a house, which, the buyers may feel that there's some value in that stuff. Because if you're a first-time home buyer or you're someone transitioning into a bigger property, you don't have enough furniture or carpets or anything else to fill it up. So, probably you're not keeping the bed sheets or the mattresses and stuff.
Well, funny you say that. In that particular case, she had just within like the last 6 months bought a brand new queen size mattress.
Nice.
But the bedding was provided where she was going. And so we did wind up with a queen size mattress. And I think actually that's the bed in our guest room right now still.
Right
is that bed.
So if you ever come over to Paul and Val's, know that it's not a fresh bed you're staying in, but they do wash fresh sheets.
That's right. If we're talking about sellers wanting a smooth sale process and to do as little work as possible, we would be remiss in not talking about sellers wanting the lowest fees possible.
Yes, well, I was hoping you wouldn't bring that up, Paul, but I thought you might. So looking back at the market that we just came out of, I think if you were going to grind a realtor for commission, that would have probably been the market to do it in. Because even though, obviously there's a lot of benefit to working with an experienced agent in a busy market, specifically dealing with multiple offers and making sure at that point you're not leaving any money on the table. You used to see, agents parachute into the Sunshine Coast from other places, and maybe their auntie had a property over holiday home and she passed away. And so some agent that's brand new from Vancouver will come in and list it, and they'll look at tax assessment and not know the market and list it, and they sell it in one day. And I had several occurrences in the last few years where I was working with a buyer. We saw that someone hadn't done their research, they hadn't held offers, we bought it, closed on it, listed it, made $250,000, for my client 2 months later, right, or 3 months later. So, I mean, there is a risk in any market not dealing with a good real estate agent or an experienced real estate agent. And typically, a good real estate agent isn't going to discount their fees because they're going to be able to show you value for what you're paying them to do. Now, in a market like this, I'd argue that it's even more important to work with a good realtor because there's a lot of selection for buyers out there. So you've got to get the exposure, you've got to present the property in the right way. And if you're using a realtor that's not busy, not experienced, they're going to be desperate for commission. They're going to agree to discount their fees. And then also they're negotiating for you. So if you can't negotiate for your own revenue, for your own business, I mean, which is arguably should be the most important thing for the realtor, how are you going to negotiate for your client if there's a tough realtor on the other end trying to grind you down, right? If you're going to fold on your own commission, you're probably going to fold on that. So in this market, it is very important that you're working with an experienced realtor and, ask them the question and see how they respond when you ask them about commission and hopefully they can justify the value. Now, one big thing then, this is really the most important thing that I see happen all the time on the Sunshine Coast. A lot of our buyers will come from out of market, right? And quite often they have a real estate agent that they're working with out of that, in a different market. And, if it was me, I'd refer that client to a local agent. But sometimes these agents don't. And so they'll be representing a client, they know nothing about the market. And what will happen is an agent will go into their listing presentation, they'll talk to their client, the client will squeeze them. They don't know how to say no to reducing commission, so they'd reduce the commission. But they keep their same commission. So they keep the amount of commission that they normally make, but they offer a discounted commission to the other realtor, right? So they'll say something like, oh, you get regular commission with first introduction, but if it's not the first introduction, so if someone's come over themselves without their realtor and gone to an open house and said, I like this place, and rang their realtor and go, we want to put an offer on this, and the realtor looks and goes, well, there's about 20 other joints just like this, they're all pretty much the same. and this guy's now screwing me over on commission rather than paying me a full commission amount. He's going to offer me $500. Maybe we won't go to that one and we'll go see some other ones. So in an environment like this where there's a ton of inventory on the market and you want to stand out, you want someone that likes your place to come and write an offer on it, don't dissuade their realtor from facilitating that by having your agent offer a discounted commission. Just negotiate a fair commission, make sure a full commission is being paid for the buyer's end so as not to dissuade a Vancouver agent from having their people ride on it, and then, move forward from there. And I think, overall, working with a good professional agent that presents your house in the right way is going to result in you get more money in your pocket than using a marginal realtor that's willing to discount their commission. Overall, on average, I think using a top agent, you're going to get a better price and have a smoother sales process, and the rest of your wish list will just be there under your tree at Christmas time.
There you go. I had somebody explain that to me one time about trying to grind too much on a commission, that sellers are in risk of stepping over dollars to pick up dimes.
Yeah.
That you have to keep your eye on the prize overall. And if you're going to pay a full commission to a realtor that's going to get you more money or better terms or a quicker deal or all of the above, that's probably preferable than saving, $1,000.
Yeah,
$1,500
or $5,000. Yeah, and I'd say, there's services out there. If you don't see value in a real estate agent and it's all about dollars and cents and you think it's just about putting a sign in the ground, phone the property guys, get them. The flat fee commission will be $500, $1,500, depending on the package. You run it yourself, right? And you see how it is to try to sell real estate. And in a busy market like we were 2 years ago, you'd probably have reasonable success at that. But this market, I'd say, you're probably going to be hard pressed to get the same sale price as someone that, that's a good realtor that's listing your house. And the other good thing, just to digress a little bit more, is the relationship that agents have with each other. So like if you're a top agent, you're working with the other, 15, 20 top agents, you do a lot of deals together. You know how to kind of make it work. And that is, again, helping facilitate a smooth sale process. And, you'll probably get a better price than if you're trying to negotiate yourself. And, the buyer's agents are representing their buyers. They're under no obligation to educate you. They're basically positioning getting the best price for the buyer. If you have an experienced agent representing you that knows all those tricks and can shut them down before they start, you're going to end up with a better result than trying to do it yourself. It's like anything. You might be decent with a wrench, right? But if you buy a Tesla and something goes wrong with it, are you going to try to monkey around yourself or get your local diesel mechanic to have a go, or you're going to take it into where it needs to go to? And overall, you're going to have a better success using someone that's a professional and specialised in that specific thing than trying to save a little bit of money in the short term.
Rounding out our list of things that sellers want under the Christmas tree this year is, I'm going to say that sellers want more time. I just read an article this morning from Victoria about Airbnb properties, that there is a huge glut of those properties on the market now. The realtor that was interviewed had said typically there's about 5 of those properties at any time on the market in Victoria. But since this announcement was made from the province, that has risen to like 45 or 50 units. So a ton of sellers trying to get stuff sold. And I think a lot of those sellers are going to look back and think, oh, I wish I had more time to get this sold. But they're kind of up against it. And how important is it for sellers to take the initiative and get something sold right now?
Yeah, I think, depending on the situation, like depending on when they bought that Airbnb and, when their mortgage has to be renewed and if they paid cash for it or, what the deal was. If you don't have to sell now, in my opinion, you shouldn't sell now, right? It's a soft market. It's going to get softer. There's going to be a ton of inventory coming on. And especially in that, that on the coast here, I'm not sure exactly what the inventory was like, around that guy's office in Victoria. But here they're basically, 600 to 1,000 square foot cabins. There's no secondary suite. There's no way for a Vancouver owner to kind of give the impression that they're living there and get a license. They're basically going to either be sold or they're going to go to long-term rental. And long-term rental, it's that market's softened here a little bit now. And so people aren't commanding the rents that they are. There's more selection for renters. And no matter what percentage it is that don't get sold of these Airbnbs, they're going to add to that inventory for long-term rental. And, and overall, that's going to soften the prices of long-term rental, which, from my perspective, that's a good thing because we have a lot of trouble on the coast right now finding workers and people having nowhere to live, you know what I mean? So that is not going to be really a good option, I think, to rent them out long-term. So if that's the case, then you've got, a 2.5% mortgage and it doesn't renew for 3 years, then you could maybe consider doing long-term rental for a period of time and then selling it when there isn't a glut of all these other offerings on the market. If you don't have that opportunity and you know that, maybe in June your mortgage is coming up and you're going from 1.5 to 7.2 or whatever it's going to be, and that you can't do Airbnb, and even with Airbnb you couldn't service that debt, you immediately want to get on that, because the sooner you list and sell it, the more you're going to get than waiting until everybody else is doing the same time. And you might want more time, and you might think, oh, well, maybe the SCRD doesn't have teeth, or Seashell isn't going to have any teeth to it. They're not going to hand out those fines and all that kind of stuff. It's not up to them. It's a provincial thing. You're not going to be able to get away from it. So you need to, get on doing what you're doing. You don't want to wait till the last minute, because, if you do, then you're going to be at the mercy of the market. Whereas now you have a little bit of control, and you have that 6-month grace period to try to figure out what you're going to do.
Tony, as we're coming to the end of 2023, what do you have on the market for December?
Fresh to the market to December. I have an absolutely beautiful place. It's a Roberts Creek 5 acre, so I think it's like 4.85. You guys just did the photos and stuff out there today. I think the listing should be live by the time, obviously, this goes to air. So yeah, it's beautiful log home, wicked views, fully fenced, ton of upgrades been done to the home, and it's in a great area. I love that particular home, and I think you'd agree it's pretty stunning, right?
The house is just gorgeous. The view is like a 10 out of 10. You see forever from up there. Mm-hmm. And there's a bit of a spot in the back that's underdeveloped that you could put like a horse barn or something if you wanted there too.
The unit at Georgia Mirage, unfortunately, that one that was sold subject to sale, but unfortunately, that buyer couldn't sell their house. But so that one's back on the market now, and that one's again another beautiful view, top of the buyer's wish list kind of thing. It is a 55 plus complex, but any retirees or that type of stuff that are looking for that one level living, that one's absolutely gorgeous. And then we've got that wicked development, that Tudor Grove development out in Madeira Park there. We've just listed a waterfront. That'll probably be gone. There's 5 waterfront lots. The first one will probably be sold by the time this comes out, but the second one's and third one will be released. So lots of interest in that. They've basically got ahead of the market and priced those ones to sell. So, if you're looking for an investment property, it's well priced. It's only 10% down on those ones. And then delivery, towards the end of next year to be able to start building and that kind of stuff. So very well organised development there. And then we have some commercial units in Soames Place. So where Eagleview Heights is, all of those units. So fantastic tenants. All the tenants are on long term. So as an investment, those commercial units, you don't get them coming up very often. That's something that I'd check out if I was a buyer looking for somewhere to put their money. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. While you're here, maybe you want to check out one of my listings or watch my video about why you should choose me to sell your home.